We are live. Hello and welcome to the Lion Show. My name is Robert Lyon, your favorite host, your favorite business coach. Today, we have the great privilege of talking to Alvin Narsey. He is a retail cash flow expert. He's a cool guy. He's been all over the world. So I'm just really excited to talk to him today. Alvin, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you're up to?
Yes, Robert, thank you for having me on the show. So, like you said, I am the business coach that helps retailers improve their cash flow and profitability. And I think you alluded to the fact that I'm at the moment in Germany. Previously, last year, actually, I was living in Melbourne, Australia. And actually, that's where I cut my teeth in building businesses. I'm a pharmacist by profession. So I've been buying and selling pharmacies for about 16 years. And then, the pandemic came in Australia. My wife and I decided that was not the place for us at that time. So I sold my business. She quit her job. We put a few things into storage and we moved to Germany. She's from Germany. So yeah. And right now, this is what I'm doing. I'm helping other retailers do the same thing that I was doing, helping them improve their cash flow and profitability.
Cool. Do you speak German?
Oh my God, man, I'm learning.
It's rough.
Have you had experience learning German?
So I lived in Baumholder, Germany. I was in the army. I lived there for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, pretty much. I mean, while I was there, I learned enough to try and pick up chicks and fail.
Important things.
But I mean, a lot of people speaking English, so it's good. I was just thinking a lot of the retail stores though in Germany, I'd go in there and try and talk to the old people that owned them, and they were very German. You know what I mean? So it'd probably be a different animal. But where in Germany do you live?
Absolutely. So we are in just south of Stuttgart. So we're in this little medieval village, really beautiful. But because we're slightly outside of the main city, like very few people here speak English. So, it's up to me if I want to order a coffee. I've really got to work on my German. But I do classes every morning, 4 days a week. And, I do like an expats German, which is just the basics. But yes, learning this language has been one of the most challenging things that I've ever done. Yeah. And for that reason, I'm going to keep doing it because I hate losing.
A lot of younger people in Germany, though, they all speak English. So you get by pretty easily.
Yes.
I like how you described it as a little medieval village. That was one of my favorite things about Europe. Is just you go to these little places and it's just like cobblestones and like they're so beautiful cities, but it is very little medieval kind of feeling.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Like literally across the road, we live from the old town. You're probably familiar with the concept if you're living there. There are like buildings and restaurants which are like 500 years old. It's absolutely stunning. And where we are, Stuttgart is kind of a wine region. Literally all around me are all vineyards. So it's absolutely beautiful.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So let's get into your retail journey. I mean, as a business coach yourself, I always like to ask, how did it start? Like, how did you kind of do the transition? What is kind of the origin story, I guess, of your retail coaching?
Yes, into coaching. Okay, great question. So, like I mentioned, I was in Melbourne last year. I was running my pharmacy business. I was also working with a business coach at the time, Glenn. And when I sold the business, Glenn asked me, "Well, Alvin, what are you going to do now?" And I was like, "I have no friggin' idea, right? I'll probably go to Germany, probably buy another business. I'm not really sure." And he impressed upon me. He said, "You've been a really good client. You've really implemented things. You should be a business coach." I was like, "Nah, dude, man, I haven't got any of your skill. There's no way I could do what you do. I know nothing." He left it as that. And, we met up for dinner, a final dinner before, I left in a few months. And he asked me again, "Have you given it much thought?" And I was like, "I've given it no thought." So I challenged him. I said, "What would I coach about? What knowledge can I impart?" And he gave me a really good answer, which really started this whole process. He said, if I could go back in time and meet my younger self when I was 26 years old and I bought my first business, my retail business, what would I tell myself, right? So that just sparked off. That was a really good coaching by him too, because he didn't give me the answer, but he kind of prompted me with the answer. And so that's basically what I've done is I've created a program that when I do travel back in time and meet little 26-year-old Alvin, this is what I'm going to tell him to work on in his business. Set the foundations up first, make sure you got your cash flow sorted, your profitability sorted before you start jumping around and doing all the crazy marketing stuff, that you think that I thought at the time was going to be really useful to grow my business. So, and that's how I've basically become a business coach.
So like I've had a couple friends who are pharmacists, and It's a tough gig. I mean, you gotta know sales, you gotta sell a lot of stuff. You really got to do it. So I'm just curious. So like when you're talking about like what was your first business like? You had like a pharmacy and then like a bunch of other stuff that you sold in the store, or just kind of give us a picture of that.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is retail pharmacy in Australia, which is very much based on I think it's Walgreens in the States,
Mhm.
that model where there's a dispensary at the back and a retail offering in the front as part of the store. So something like that. So that's basically how pharmacy is in Australia. So you have a dispensary, and then there's not much money to be made in the dispensary. So you kind of offset that and try and pick up sales from having a front of shop offering. And that's where you have, apart from your medicinal stuff, cosmetics, baby stuff, baby food, health foods, all those kind of things. So heavy retail component in Australia anyway, because, the health system is so reliant on the government, of course, in Australia. The government obviously are looking at ways to minimize their own health costs. So they reduce the amount of payments that we get paid per dispensing. And so, you need to have that full offering in the store.
Yeah. I mean, so as a retail business, right? We're talking retail business here.
Mm.
You buy from a wholesaler a bunch of stuff, right? And then you try and sell it for, like what are your margins? Like, are you like 50%, just like whatever you can sell it for? Is it really skinny? Like what kind of, how did it work for you, or what'd you do?
Absolutely. So yeah, we basically broke up the shop into two parts. We had the dispensary, and we had what we generally call the front of shop. So in the dispensary, average margins are about 40-45% gross margins. In the shops, it really ranged depending on what you were trying to sell. Cosmetics had low margin, but anywhere sort of between 38 to 60% gross margin, right? So really, really good businesses. And you were just working on trying to get more customers through the door and provide the complete solution. And then the discounters entered the market.
Mhm.
And then that kind of, spiraled down the margins a little bit because it was a race to the bottom. But yeah, there are average margins.
One of my favorite books is Sam Walton's book, Made in America or whatever. And
Yes.
he's a crazy guy. So he would like go to all these different retail stores and he would like measure the aisle length. And he once got kicked out of like some store in Brazil because he was like counting the steps from the door and things like that. So what are some things that you think of to make a successful retail store? What does that kind of go into?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key things is, so basic, but it's really understanding your target market. So who are we trying to serve? Who are we trying to chase? So I think that's really, really important, because then that determines everything else, right? That determines our product offering and, our team to a certain extent on how we present to our clients and customers. And then, of course, there is the whole Sam Walton stuff, who was the king of retail merchandising, right?
Yeah.
So there's our whole merchandising offer, how we lay out the stores, how we even lay out the gondolas, whether we have them on a certain angle. But certainly, I guess that boils down to customer flow in
Right.
your particular shop, right? So making sure that you can kind of get your customer in one way, kind of guide them through the store, through all the areas that you want them to go to
Mhm.
the checkout, and then seduce them some more into a checkout. So, and that encompasses the whole retail experience.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I mean, so we have an art business. I sell furniture and all kinds of stuff. So we've had brick and mortar stores. We've gone to all the farmers markets and sold. I've literally like just like almost like sold out the back of my truck a lot of time back in the day when I first started my business and things
Yes.
like that. And now we've just gone completely e-commerce though. We just got tired of dealing with people coming in the store and just like we're going to do our own thing and just sell it all online. But I feel like the worlds are shifting, the times are shifting. Yes, selling online is, I'm never going to stop selling online,
Mm-mm.
but I feel like there's huge opportunities to go back to brick and mortar, but it's all about location, right? So like I guess if you were going to buy a new business, what are some things that you look at? What are some things that you think about? Or I guess you're coaching retail businesses. So what kind of are your processes, I guess, for coaching and boosting cash flow, I guess, as you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with the coaching, and then we can go back to how we look at a business, because that's a really fun question too, I think. So basically, I have a framework that I work with retail clients, and we work on three areas of the business, right? First of all, we work through visibility. So we understand the visibility of the numbers in our business. And that's, simple things like making sure we're tracking our cash flow, making sure that we have some sort of KPIs and we have a KPI dashboard set up. When it comes to the cash component, we just want to make sure that we are really driving and understanding our average sale per customer, making sure we have a system for minimizing our expenses. And in the profit component, I work really, really hard with my retail business owners to raise their margins where possible and go through a process to do that. And, ultimately we start creating a rock star team, which is one of the key aspects there. So we're trying to get the team to really drive the business forward by getting a deep understanding of, how we can best serve our customers and clients. So that's the process, the 3-step process I work through.
Visibility, more sales, and then build a killer team, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know why I think retail business is different than online business. It's the same thing. It's just a different environment.
Exactly right. What I talk about is the fundamentals of almost every business, right? You need to know your numbers. You need to know how to generate cash. You need to be sympathetic to profits in your business. I just chose to niche in retail because I love it. I've been doing it since forever, since I was 26 years old. I speak the language of retail really, really well, and I resonate that with those people. So these are just fundamentals, and it's not anything I've made up, right? This has been, it's not rocket science. It's just the fundamentals of running a business properly.
So if there's a struggling business out there, a struggling retail business, what would be the first thing that you would look at? Just the how much money they're making, what's your team like, how do you get more visible people in there? How do you get more foot traffic? Like, we'll just kind of dive a little bit deeper in there. What would you do?
Yeah, I'd actually take a step back. What we do is we really try and get the business owner to understand how the cash is flowing through their business. And many retailers have they don't track their cash flow, or they don't understand the flow of cash through their business. Certainly they might get reports from their bookkeeper or their accountant, every quarter or every month, if you're lucky. They might get a cash flow statement, but most retailers, we look at all the numbers and we're like, what does all this mean? And we put it aside, right? So the first thing we do is
Sorry, that's true though.
It is. I mean, I did the same thing, when I was first starting a business, like, what does all this mean? They just give it to you and you look at all the numbers and oh man, I've got so many other things to do in the shop. Mary's called in sick. I've got to put out this fire. So we put it to one side. So simply recording our cash flow just gives, the business owner great insight into what's happening, and this, Robert, what gets measured gets managed. And so just that simple step of recording cash in, cash out, we do it on a weekly basis. Really just a lot of business owners, it just blows their mind because wow, this is exactly what's happening. And so once we record, our cash flow for 12 weeks, and we record it because, we trade weekly. Most retailers, a retail week is a good amount of time in the retail world to, observe changes and record changes. So we track our cash flow weekly. And then after 12 weeks, we can get to this fun part of starting to forecast our cash flow, which gets really fun. And, with a high degree of accuracy based on the previous 12 weeks. And of course, in our retail game, there are seasonal variances, which we need to take into consideration. But just tracking cash flow is one of the big things there that we do. Well, the first things.
I mean, I like that. That's what you got to do, basically. And then for visibility, I mean, for if it was an online business, we run ads. What do you guys do for retail? Same thing, basically, right? You just got to get more people in the door, get people more excited, and things like that. I mean, obviously that's marketing, but it's just
So my, and everybody wants to come. When somebody has a cash flow or a profitability problem, they come to me and they say, let's do some different marketing. And I'm of the firm volition that, right, we can do marketing, but let's set up our foundations correctly. Let's set the house up correctly because, without having a proper KPI dashboard, for instance, once we do the marketing, we're really not going to have any way of knowing what's working. And, if we're not tracking and measuring quite often, and I used to do the same thing, I'll start a marketing initiative and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, this is not working, and I'll jump to something else. And then, it's just like, hang on, we haven't really given it enough time. And the only way we know it's working is we're tracking top line sales only. Some things take a little bit of time to put through, to come through in our business. So yeah.
That's cool. What is your I guess, who do you help the best? Are you looking for retail pharmaceutical places, any kind of retail business, clothing company like that. Those are the kind of things that I think about. What do you think of when you're looking for your ideal customer who
Absolutely.
you can help the most?
Yeah, all of them. So they all come into that general thing. I'm not necessarily looking for pharmacy-based businesses, but most of my clients are retail business owners. They're usually in a high street or a mall. They're usually slightly bigger, turning over at least $500,000. They've got a team in there. They've been trading for at least a couple of years. So my expertise is taking that, that almost small to mid-size, but somebody that's already got some revenue and taking it to the next level. I'm not the startup guy. That's never been my experience.
It's a tough gig, man. Because like I used to supply my stuff to people on the malls, and you got to sell constantly just to stay open, because especially in America, like to have a good retail location, costs are going up, price per square foot is ridiculous just to have a freaking store. So it's a tough gig to really make it all flow. But then, I'm sure there's seasons where, Christmas and things like that, where you make all your money, you make all your profits, it's kind of interesting. So yes, cash flow is king.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. High foot traffic malls are really, really challenging, as you said, because of this, the rent required to cover that. But if we can be strategic in our approach and, really start to have a plan in place, we can be successul. So
awesome. I'd like to go into like the vision, right?
Yes.
So when you have a retail store, or like, is it just for any business owner that you kind of like to talk about vision with?
Absolutely. So, we all know about having a vision for our business. You need a mission and a vision and values for your business, which is super important. What I like to do, and this is a business coach I worked with very early on, he helped me define a personal vision. And I think it's one of those things which are often missed, right? And I like to do this personal visioning process because once we have an idea of you as the retail business owner, what really drives you, what gets you excited, what would you rather be doing with your time, what your values are, and so once we really get an understanding of what that is, even just a very quick version 1.0 version. So we know what we want this business to provide for us, so that, what would we rather be doing, making sure that, we can pick the kids up from school, do Brazilian jiu-jitsu a couple of times a week. But also the vision process, the personal vision also makes it really easy for us because, when you start to work with a coach or a consultant or a mentor, we're going to get you to do some really hard things in the beginning, like you're setting up systems and processes. If you haven't done that before, it's so easy to throw in the towel. And when it gets to that stage, when you're like, oh man, I don't want to do this, we can always fall back on the vision. Okay, I'm doing this because I want to set this business up so I can be skiing 3 months of the year or a couple of times a week, so I can pick the kids up early. So I think having that personal vision for ourselves, and, even if, as I said, just a version 1.0, and it's something that we can continually be working on and towards, I think is so important because I think that drives the rest of the business.
I'm really happy you said that because I'm building a new business and it's like pulling teeth, man.
Yes.
Getting to the point where I'm just like, I burn out real quick at it because I've just been doing it for so long, but we're so close to launch and everything else.
Yes.
That's important to know, man. It's important to have as well.
Yeah, I think so. And it's so often forgotten. And it's also very challenging. I remember the first time I did it, when my coach, who was I working with, Casey at the time, said, what are your values? Like, I have no idea what my values are. And this is the same thing that my clients do. We have a little worksheet that we do. And it's like, I don't know, Alvin, this is too hard. I was like, okay, let's just think it through. Here are some examples. And, it's a little bit challenging because I guess you're confronted with yourself, and very few people actually take the time to sit down with themselves and really look at what they want for themselves, but it's a fun exercise, and a lot of people find it really, really valuable, later on down the track as well as like their guiding star.
It's just getting to the point where I'm just like, I want the money now, but I just need to slow down and just do a really good job and make some brilliant work, and everything will be all right.
You're having to coach yourself. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty funny. So I had another question that I thought of. So, cause like I'm the sales guru for online stuff, right? So if I were to talk to a retail company I've actually talked to quite a few, but I recommend that they do start selling their products online as well. But I want to know from you, is like there a phase where that's a good idea, whereas you should just focus on the business first? Like I would be mad if I helped the business go all online and then their main focus on their business kind of went off the rails. So like, what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm speaking from experience because I had quite a, well, you might not know, but in retail, there's this buzzword called omni-channel retailing, right? Where you're doing both. You've got an in-store experience and you're also selling online. So how does this apply to like a non-big, like a regular mom and pop retailer? Yeah, I think it's really important that we have our house in order first. Mm-hmm. So, we're making sure that at least our retail store is profitable. We have some systems and procedures in place. We've got our staffing under control, and it's sort of humming along nicely. Because when you start to sell online, you as a business owner, you've got a whole heap of other challenges that you need to work through. Especially, one of the fun things in retail land is we have a point of sale system, and if you're trying to get your 2 point of sale system, your Magento or your e-commerce one, trying to talk to the one in store, that's when all the fun begins. So I think it's really, really important that we set everything up in our store first, make sure that's humming nicely. And then we need to be really considering, most retail businesses need to be considering an e-commerce approach as well as part of that whole strategy for driving their business forward. And some retailers might need to look at it like, okay, I have the store to provide an experience to my customers and clients. So they might come in, not necessarily buy, but they'll have a great in-store experience from the merchandising, maybe play with an iPad, which will see all the products, a big screen TV. And then we create such an impression that, maybe later on, 24, 36 hours, they end up buying our products online. So I think it's really, really important to have both, depending on your target market. But yeah, we need to make sure that our tent is set up correctly.
Yeah. It's kind of stuck with me. So that I was just talking to some guy. He didn't have a great business setup, but he was trying to make some money. And he's like, well, whenever I go to the farmer's market, 1 out of 40 people will buy. But then I open up my shop online and I run all these ads and it's like 1 out of 1,000 and still nobody buys. And it's a totally different thing though. Like if you're in person, it's a lot easier to sell something to somebody than online where people are just like blasting through shifting through everything. They'll look at something for like 2 seconds and pop off. So yeah, but it is good to keep going. Because I even think beyond retail, I almost think every family in like America or everywhere all over the world should just have their own little e-com thing going, just because it is an extra thing of cash and you could just sell your stuff. If every family had one, you make a little bit more money. So absolutely.
And the cost for doing so has come down considerably, right? So you can set up a Shopify
if you know what you're doing, I guess. Yeah, for sure. Yes. So I want to talk to you about, how did you buy your first business? And then what's that like? I talked to another guy. All he did in Australia was buy businesses, fix them up, and then sell them. And I was like, man, that's so cool. In America, maybe I'm missing something, but in Australia, it seems like it's the way to be. So what was that like buying your first business? And what's it just like? What's the process? How did you do it?
Okay. So for me, it was a hustle. I had no money. My parents had no money. But what I was able to do is I took the approach that I was really confident in what I could do. I don't know why I was really confident, but I was just really hungry, right? So it was quite common to go to an existing partnership and basically what I did was I convinced a couple other people who already had businesses to finance me on board onto their business, and I would grow their business. That's basically what I did. So I financed, I found a partnership. They had 2 guys, they had a store, and I came in and I said, look, guys, if you want to grow your business, I can help you grow the businesses. If you could use the shop as collateral for the bank for me and finance me in. And, you guys can sort of not really take a step back, but this is what I can promise and deliver for you. And so obviously to do that, there was a lot of convincing involved, and a lot of hustling involved, right? And at the same time, I was still working as a locum pharmacist. So I was able to contribute a little bit of cash towards the deal, but it mainly just covered legal costs and all that fun stuff. Yeah. So that's how I got into my first business. And then from there, I had to deliver. And so we did. which was really great because my two partners at the time were really, really supportive. And once they saw all the things that I was doing, I gathered their momentum. And, within the space of a couple of years, we had bought and sold a couple more shops. We had 5 shops together at one stage. It was really easy to continue the momentum to buy and sell. And then halfway through our partnership, we decided to go separate ways. And we just kind of sold everything. And I took one shop, they took a shop each when we had left over. Cool. And then I just continued on after that. So
nice. So just determination and connecting with the right people.
Yes.
Do you have any tips on finding good partners? It's a tough one, but
it's a really tough one. So I think but the principles are the same, because I have a lot of young people asking me the same thing who were in my situation, didn't have any cash to start with. But I think it's getting into the network and trying to figure out who the spheres of influence are within the network that you're trying to get into. So definitely get in touch with accountants, solicitors, business brokers, friends of friends, anyone you know. And that's basically all I did. Like I went to accountants and say, hey, I'm looking to get into a business. If you have any clients, some people turned me away. Some people just said, okay, I'll call you back. But I just persisted and just emailed and tried to get in front of them, tried to make an appointment to see them. Yeah. And eventually it came through, right? It took me about 24 to 36 months of hustling in that way. And then eventually I started to meet people and, be in touch with people. And then, some people really just wanted to take me for a ride. They wanted a slave. So I made sure that I didn't, connect with those people again. But, right. There were some genuine people who were looking to help. And also the way I positioned it was, I can help you grow your business. And I think if you position it like that, I had the energy and the youth, I guess, compared to my older partners back then. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I was able to provide my value proposition. So essentially that's what somebody today can do as well.
Young Alvin hustling out there, man. And then you kind of leveled up, right? So then you went from there and you got another business and it did well. Yeah. Is that what happened?
Exactly. Cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I love that, man. That's awesome. So I just want to talk about, like, if you were going to do like a business audit for people, because I think we were going to get into that, like what does that look like? How do you audit someone's business? And then like you look at the numbers, is it like run around their store? What's it kind of like?
Yeah, I do everything online. So no running around the store anymore. So yeah, what you're referring to is like, I'm offering a free cash flow audit for the first 3 people that email me, and I'll give you the details afterwards to tell me that they heard you on your show. So basically what's involved, we just ask a few key questions. We try and get an understanding on whether they are tracking their cash flow. We try and get an understanding of if they have some, KPIs set up. And then we just try and really get an understanding of, what are the limiting levers in their business, and it's just a question process. And hopefully the person on the other end knows their numbers a little bit, because that makes the whole strategy session a lot more compelling for them. But usually we can put them on a little bit of a pathway and, give them a few strategies that they can then start to increase their cash flow, It's yeah.
Perfect, man. So now I want to ask, how do you find good products for your store, man? What was your secret? Did you figure out any way? I mean, it's different all over the world. So I wish you were in America and I'd be like, where'd you find the good, like, wholesalers? I want to pick up some weird stuff and sell it, but what was your theory or how did it go? I mean, obviously understand your customer, but then
100%. Exactly. And that's where it all starts. So, the understanding your customer is so important. And then from there, it's just basically working backwards. So if my ideal client is X, what other products and services can I provide for this client and customer? And then it's just really just a matter of trying to find, a particular product range. You work backwards, a category, and within that category, what we would do, and what I recommend my clients to do, is let's run a point of sale report in your shop. Hopefully you're using a point of sale system. Let's try and understand what categories in your business are doing really, really well. So, for instance, if you're selling electronics, perhaps tablets are doing well, or microphones are doing well, or something like that. Let's try and get an understanding of what's really working in your store. And then how can we adapt that information towards our target market? So, if our target market are women, and we sell a lot of microphones, maybe we can start to look at, the whole pink range of microphones, just an example, that are coming in, and let's try that option. And then work backwards, and let's try and find a supplier, a wholesaler, I beg your pardon, and then, start the relationship from there. But like you said, it all starts from the top. we really need to understand who it is we're serving, who we're chasing, and who we can provide the most value to, and then work backwards.
This is more like a philosophical question. So there's no like right answer. Well, it's not even that philosophical. It's still business. But would you, like, when you're thinking of your business, would you rather get like $20 from every customer that walks through the door or walks by, or would you rather get like one big high ticket sale every now and then that kind of does stuff? Like when you're thinking retail or whatever, all these business things, like, would you rather go high ticket or get $20 from, everybody? Like what's kind of your philosophy?
That's a really good question. I don't know, but if I'm thinking out loud, I would have to understand the business and the margins. Usually, if a greater basket size would mean usually greater margins, I'm just thinking out loud. And then, if you're doing large ticket sales, then you can be a little bit more efficient with your staffing. If you're doing lower ticket sales, you probably need more staff. It's a really good question. I'm at the moment, while I'm talking to you, edging on the bigger ticket items, but it's so individual, man. Like,
like I said, it's kind of a topic question. I mean, I've done both. Where obviously high ticket is cooler, and it's a lot simpler business model. Where if you just have this to one sale, it's a big profit. Whereas this to this and a bunch of little sales, and then maybe they'll buy something big at the end. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, and usually with high ticket price items, you've got less SKUs or you've got less products in your store typically. And lower priced items, usually, you're selling a lot of stuff. So pros and cons. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, has there been any like pullback in the market in Europe or in people like that you're coaching? Has there been like a, because what I'm seeing is when I'm talking to all these marketers and all these business people is like right now, there's not as much cash flow going everywhere. There's like people are kind of getting restricted. There's just like what's working is still kind of working, but nobody's getting explosive growth at the moment. Have you seen the same thing?
Yes, I'm seeing the same thing. And I think that's a function of, there's a whole lot happening in the market at the moment. I mean, certainly in Europe, you've got the whole thing with Ukraine happening around the corner. Obviously, you've got record inflation happening everywhere, most places around the world. And there's just a certain feeling of, instability. So people are just a little bit cautious. But I'm confident that we're going to ride this through as we always do.
Yeah.
And, we just make sure we ride the next wave. And so, if we are experiencing a downtime, this is the best time in our business to start innovating, really thinking things through, clean up our back house, get the systems a little bit tightened, all that kind of thing. So we definitely shouldn't be idle.
No, and I think it's just a sobering moment, I think, for a lot of business owners.
Yes, well said.
It's just important, you know what I mean? And then I also kind of, for us, like as coaches, if you're out there and you're running a business, it's a good time to get someone to come in there and help you clean up and make things happen. Totally. So there's opportunity always. And in theory, I think we might just be on the verge of another big boom, and then maybe eventually we'll have a downfall. But right now, I think we're going to pick back up and things will get better, hopefully. So we'll see what happens. I want to talk to you now about employees and just finding good people to work with. What's your theory on hiring or just doing all that?
Yes. So with hiring, I think we always need to be hiring. So what I mean by that is I always encourage my retailers to always have a job ad out there in the marketplace all the time. And even though you may not be hiring, which is not the case at the moment because there's such a staff shortage. However, even though you may not be hiring, you might come across a rock star who could just come in and totally transform your business. And you really need to give that person an opportunity. So we should always be hiring. The other thing as a step back from that is I think we really, as retailers in every business, I think we really need to be clear on our org chart and who our team members are in our business and the roles and functions of that particular team member, right? In retail, you've got sales specialists, you definitely got inventory specialists and all those kind of different roles. And most businesses have the same. But I think we need to get really, really specific about our position descriptions to the point where, we want to sort of understand the type of personality that, would fit that particular role. But there's a whole heap of back work that goes into that. And, unfortunately, most business owners haven't really thought about that thing. We're really too reactive, right? If Mary leaves and we're like, oh shit, we're going to hire somebody and we just get somebody in. And then we're constantly band-aiding a hole that we have. But that would be my two big tips, right? Making sure we've got proper position descriptions and to continually be hiring, have that job ad happening all the time. And to manage that, we need to ensure that we have some sort of application system, and it's the easiest thing to do on Google Forms, so that people aren't coming into the store with their resumes, but they're filling out a form online, and we're asking the right questions to triage for that role based on our position description. And that kind of filters everything through for us. And, when we get a good candidate, who's someone who's taken time to answer the questions properly, that's when we can pick up the phone and call them.
That's cool. That's a good insight.
Yes.
Do you have any advice on just getting over the fear of hiring people? Because it's like, if you're always hiring, it's just kind of a different thing. New people, and like, you're worried your business is your baby. They're not going to treat it right or something. Any tips?
Well, then this is another business coach thing. You need to have an induction process, right? You need to make sure that all that's sorted. So, when they come in, they're properly inducted, and this is one of the major mistakes that, retailers in my game make, right? We just get that person and throw them on the floor without them really having an understanding of, what we are about as a business, who our clients are, how we go about looking after our clients, how do we serve them, So yeah, we just really need to make sure we have our inductions sorted as well, and obviously having our position descriptions as well. So yeah, it's it's a bit of a linear process, but once you get it sorted, it can be a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
You can just have people filling out the form all the time, and then basically it's up to you. But in my experience, it's not going to be that big of a barrage of people applying, right? It's just usually going to be a trickle. So, enough to manage.
Have you found any characteristics between the rock stars that have been really good for businesses and the ones that aren't so good?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do the one of the personality tests.
You do the personality test, the Myers-Briggs, or whatever, all those things.
But so basically we have set up, someone who we think, like, if you have a sales position, they've got to be sort of strong and assertive, and they've really got to be organized a little bit, whereas someone who's in the back room doesn't need to be so strong in sales, but needs to be highly organized and that kind of thing. DISC profiles, I beg your pardon, there it is, it came. So we use the DISC profiles, and I encourage my clients to do the same thing. Yeah, DISC. It's a free one you can do online. So we've kind of mapped out, like, for particular positions in the store, you'd need someone with different characteristics who would best suit that job. It's not the be on and end all. There are always going to be people, but it just makes our process as a business owner a lot easier.
I always just think those are kind of like hiring off people's horoscope or something, but there is science behind it. They're cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's cool, man. Well, we've covered a lot. So I've got 3 questions that I kind of ask everybody who comes on the show.
Okay.
But before we get into that, I want to make sure everybody in the audience and listening can find you online. So what's the best way to get in contact with you and to find you out there?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn and Facebook. If you just type in my details, Alvin Narsey, send me a message. Let me know you heard me on here with Robert. If you're interested in that cash flow audit, we can definitely, the first 3 people, we can do that. And you can also pump me into Google. I'll come up everywhere. My YouTube channel, my podcast, all my digital assets are readily available.
Cool. What's your podcast called?
It's called Alvin's Bites. I did season 1 of a micro podcast, and it's like a 7-minute show, and where I ask business owners the same 3 questions. How they increase their cash flow and profit, what kind of KPIs they use, and across a few different industries. And it was something that I heard Gary Vee talk about, like a micro podcast a long time ago. Cool. And so I just did that and done season 1. And now I'm working towards season 2, which is going to be a little bit longer. And I'm trying to find retailers to talk to. So if you're a retailer and you want to be on the podcast and you want to be interviewed and share your knowledge, I'd love to talk to you as well.
Perfect. So the first question is, like, I'm really interested in the listener's success and just success in general. So I'm just curious if you have any tips that we haven't touched on that you think of has led to your success or to be more successful.
Yeah, I think, I spoke about the vision. I think the vision for me has been really, really important as part of my success. It's something that drives me forward because I know what I'm working towards. I know what I'm trying to create. So I think that's really, really important. And for me personally, and I know this doesn't apply to everybody, I like to have a rhythm and like a structure to my day, and that's really important for me to feel successful.
I like that. Can you give us a little bit of example of kind of what a rhythm for your success is like?
Absolutely. Okay, I'll give you my daily routine, right? So I get up at 5:30, I meditate for an hour, and then I go to the gym or I go to the sauna. I come back, and then I make coffee every morning from scratch. I brew Turkish coffee, so that involves grinding beans, using the particular kind of methodology, the
Cool.
little jezve to make the coffee, and that's really meditative for me. Having that process really grounds me. And then before I start what I consider work, I always read for 15 minutes in the morning a business book or a mindset self-help book, something like that. So I do that, and then I start work. And then at the end of the day, at 4:30, I do my evening journal, and that's something that I've been doing for a very long time. And basically, it's a reflection of my wins for the day, what I want to win at tomorrow, and just random stuff that comes into my head that I like to just collate down and write down. I find the process of writing in a physical journal for me is very meditative and really, really useful in just kind of collating my thoughts. So that's my routine, man. That's my game.
I love that, man. Whenever I do
Yeah.
stuff like that, I always kick ass too. So I'm glad to
Yeah.
hear somebody else actually doing it. That's cool, man. And then, so the next question is, what motivates you? What gets you fired up? What gets you really doing things?
Yes. So I think I'm essentially very lazy. And what motivates me is to be able to spend time to do the things that I love. And it's going back to this vision thing again. So, I love to travel. I love to read. I love to really hang out and, play music and that kind of thing, like listen to music. I love to cook. So I make sure that I structure my work life and really everything around what I do so I can spend more time doing the things that I love. And that makes me supremely happy. If I know I can read, I can cook, and I can go to the gym and I can explore these crazy places, I'm super, super happy.
Cool. I like that. It's good to be happy and do stuff you love,
What a novel concept, right?
Crazy. And then the last question is its impact is kind of the key word, but we already kind of talked about some of your habits, but what's one habit that you started that once you started doing, you really saw an impact in your life and you kind of got results?
Yeah. I think the process of putting together a vision board, like a physical vision board, I do one of these every couple of years or so. And for those who aren't familiar, a vision board is really a board. I use like a big board, and I print stuff out that I want to not necessarily manifest, but what's really important to me that I want to achieve in my life. And I kind of break it down into certain areas like wealth and health and mind and all that kind of thing. And basically, I just search Google Images, I print them out, and I put them up on this physical board. And so some of the things on my vision board for Europe this year is like the traveling that I want to do, the places that I want to visit. I'm really super keen on doing so many cooking courses because I love cooking. So I've got those little bits there,
Cool.
and the books I want to read. So those kind of things are really, really important for me right now.
No, that's good. You got to wake up every day and remember what you're working for and what you want and what you're going to do.
Yeah,
so I think vision boards are very powerful, and just to keep yourself in, like you said, in a rhythm and keep going, man. That's cool. Well, we went over a lot, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Do you have any kind of last thoughts you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I had a really good time. Thank you so much. That's so good.
Yeah, it was a fun show, man. Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to drop us some links at the bottom and check out the show notes. And so the first 3 people that listen to the show and reach out to Alvin, you're going to give them a retail audit.
Yes, I'm going to give them a cash flow audit, a 15-minute cash flow audit for their business. Absolutely.
Everybody needs more cash flow out there. So appreciate you listening. Share this with someone else who's got a retail business and wants to learn some stuff. And have a great day, everybody. Talk to you in the next one.
Bye. Thank you.